The massive alien vessel appeared first as a faint blip on the scanners. Lieutenant Yuna Lee leaned forward at her station, adjusting the sensitivity of the Thunder's long-range sensors. The readings made no sense. The ship's energy signature didn't match anything in their database. "Captain, you need to see this," she called out, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Captain Jaho Park rose from his command chair, his boots clicking against the polished deck as he moved to her station. The bridge of the U.S. Thunder hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-trained crew. Through the main view screen, stars stretched endlessly into the void, broken only by the approaching vessel's silhouette. Analysis. Park's voice remained steady, though his hand tightened slightly on the back of Yuna's chair. The ship is approximately 3 kilometers in length. Hull composition unknown. Energy readings are off the charts, but they don't match any known configuration. "Sir," she paused, double-checking her readings, "I'm detecting weapons signatures unlike anything we've encountered." Before Park could respond, more ships began appearing on their sensors. Dozens at first, then hundreds, materializing from what appeared to be some form of faster-than-light travel. The vessels varied wildly in design. Some were organic-looking, with curves and patterns that suggested biological origin, while others were angular and geometric, bristling with visible weapon arrays. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, Captain, called out Ensign Hyunwoo from Tactical. "They're taking up attack formations, but not against us. They appear to be engaged with each other." Park watched as energy weapons crisscrossed space between the alien vessels. The battle unfolding before them was clearly part of something much larger, a conflict they had unknowingly stumbled into. "Run full spectrum analysis on their communications," Park ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The Thunder's quantum computers began processing the flood of alien transmissions. Their universal translators struggled initially, but patterns began emerging. 12 distinct species, each with their own language and communication protocols, all engaged in what appeared to be a centuries-old war. "Sir," Yuna's voice carried a note of concern. "They've noticed us. We're being hailed by multiple vessels simultaneously." Park straightened his uniform. On screen. "Let's introduce ourselves to the neighborhood." The view screen flickered, splitting into several sections. Each displayed a different alien bridge crew. Some were humanoid, others decidedly not. One appeared to be a collection of crystalline structures, another a swirling mass of gas contained within an environmental suit. "This is Captain Jaho Park of the United Earth Ship Thunder. We come in peace and request clarification of the current situation." The response was immediate and chaotic. Multiple voices overlapped, each claiming territorial rights, declaring the others as aggressors, demanding the Thunder's immediate withdrawal. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the cacophony of accusations and threats. "Hold position," Park commanded his helm officer. "Power up shields, but do not charge weapons. Let's not add to the chaos." The Thunder's quantum drives continued their steady hum as the ship maintained its position. Around them, the battle had paused, all attention now focused on the unexpected arrival of an unknown vessel and species. "Captain," Yuna called out, her voice urgent, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from multiple vessels. They're scanning us, and I don't think they like what they're finding." Park nodded grimly. Humanity's first contact with alien life was about to become considerably more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The Thunder's presence had interrupted a delicate balance of power, and now 12 species watched them, trying to determine if this new arrival would become ally or enemy. "Send a general broadcast," Park ordered. "All frequencies, all languages our translator can manage. Let them know we're here to understand, not to fight. But make it clear we're capable of defending ourselves if necessary." As Yuna transmitted the message, Park watched the alien ships on the view screen. Centuries of war had shaped these species, driven them to technological achievements born of necessity and survival. Yet none of them had encountered humans before. None of them knew what humanity was capable of. The Thunder's quantum drives pulsed steadily, ready to respond to whatever came next. In that moment, as 12 alien species considered their next move, the course of their ancient conflict, and humanity's role in the galaxy, hung in the balance. The holographic display flickered as Admiral Narration Kim's face appeared, her expression stern and unyielding. The alien admiral's features were surprisingly human-like, though her skin held a faint purple tinge that seemed to shift in the light. "You will withdraw your vessel immediately," she stated, her translated words sharp and clear. "This sector falls under Coalition jurisdiction. Your presence here is a violation of space we have fought centuries to protect." Captain Park stood calmly before the view screen, hands clasped behind his back. "With respect, Admiral, we cannot withdraw without understanding the situation we've encountered. Our mission is one of peaceful exploration, but we now find ourselves in the middle of what appears to be a significant conflict." Tactical Officer Taeyang Choi's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, multiple vessels are charging weapons, energy signatures increasing across all quadrants." "Admiral Kim," Park continued, keeping his voice level, "your ships are preparing to fire. I strongly advise against this course of action. We're willing to share information about Earth and our intentions. All we ask is the same courtesy in return." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You dare to make demands? The Coalition has held this space through 12 generations of war. We've lost millions defending these systems from those who would steal our resources." "Resources?" Park pressed gently. "Perhaps we could discuss the nature of this conflict. Understanding often leads to better solutions than threats." A different alien commander broke into the transmission, their crystalline form shimmering. "The Admiral speaks of the helium-3 rich worlds in this sector, worlds that rightfully belong to the crystalline collective." More voices joined the chaos, each claiming ownership of various systems and resources. Park listened carefully as the translation software struggled to keep up with the overlapping arguments. The picture became clearer. This wasn't just a territorial dispute, but a desperate scramble for survival. "Sir," Taeyang reported, "I'm detecting massive refugee movements in nearby systems. Civilian ships by the thousands, trying to escape the combat zones." Park raised his hand, silencing the arguing alien commanders. "You speak of resources and territory, but what of your people? Our sensors show civilian casualties on a massive scale." Admiral Kim's expression flickered briefly, showing a hint of weariness beneath her military bearing. "The refugees are unfortunate collateral damage. But the resources in these systems are essential for our species' survival. Without the helium-3 deposits, entire worlds will freeze. Billions will die." "And what of our worlds?" Another commander interjected. "Our children already freeze in the outer colonies while your people hoard the fuel deposits." Park moved closer to the view screen. "Admiral, commanders, what if there were alternatives? Earth has developed various energy technologies. Perhaps we could." "Weapons locked on our position," Taeyang announced. "Multiple trajectories. Hold position," Park ordered calmly. "Shields at maximum, but do not return target locks." He turned back to the alien leaders. "We recognize your struggle. We've faced similar challenges in our history. But turning your weapons on us won't solve the underlying problem." Admiral Kim studied him for a long moment. "You speak of alternatives, human, yet you command a warship. Your vessel's power readings suggest capabilities that could shift the balance of this entire conflict." "The Thunder is indeed capable of defending herself," Park acknowledged. "But our primary mission is exploration and diplomacy. We're offering to help find a solution that benefits all parties." The Admiral's expression changed subtly. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain Park. But perhaps we could discuss these alternatives you mention privately." As the other commanders protested, Park noticed something in the Admiral's eyes. Hope, perhaps, or desperation masked as diplomacy. Either way, it was an opening. "I look forward to our discussion, Admiral," he replied. "In the meantime, I request safe passage for our observers to document the refugee situation. If we're to help, we need to understand the full scope of this crisis." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Granted. But know this, Captain. If you betray this trust, if you attempt to aid our enemies, the Coalition's response will be decisive." As the transmission ended, Tai Young reported that most vessels were powering down their weapons. Park returned to his command chair, mind racing with possibilities and potential catastrophes. "Send our findings to Earth Command," he ordered, "and prepare a shuttle for refugee observation. We've bought ourselves some time. Now we need to make it count." The refugee ships filled the view screen, a ragged fleet of civilian vessels desperately trying to escape the war zone. Captain Park watched as their sensors tracked over 500 ships, most of them overcrowded and running on depleted fuel cells. Multiple Coalition warships approaching the refugee fleet. Lieutenant Ha-Won Song reported from her tactical station. "They're charging weapons." Park's jaw tightened. They had spent days documenting the refugee crisis, watching as civilians fled from system to system. Now, it seemed, the Coalition's patience had run out. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Coalition vessels, this is Captain Park of the Thunder. Those are civilian ships under our protection. Stand down immediately." The response came in the form of energy beams lancing out from the Coalition ships, striking the engines of the lead refugee vessel. The civilian ship's power failed, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. "Sir, they're targeting life support systems." Ha-Won's fingers flew across her console. "At this rate, the civilian casualties will be—" "Enough," Park cut her off, rising from his command chair. "Battle stations. Shields at maximum. Lieutenant Song, target their weapon emplacements only. Disable, don't destroy." The Thunder's quantum drives roared to life as the massive ship moved to intercept. Coalition energy beams splashed harmlessly against their advanced shields, the technology far beyond anything the alien forces had encountered. "Multiple target solutions available," Ha-Won announced. Thunder's targeting systems locked on all enemy weapon emplacements. "Fire." The Thunder's response was surgical and devastating. Precision energy pulses struck key points on the Coalition vessels, shorting out their weapon systems with minimal collateral damage. Ship after ship found themselves suddenly unable to fire, their advanced targeting arrays reduced to sparking ruins. "Enemy vessels attempting to regroup," Ha-Won reported. "They're calling for reinforcements." Park nodded calmly. "Show them what else we can do, Lieutenant." Defensive pattern Delta. The Thunder moved with impossible grace for a ship its size, its quantum drive allowing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Coalition ships found their remaining weapons tracking empty space as the human vessels seemed to anticipate their every move. "Sir, Coalition flagship is hailing us," Communications Officer Ji-Min announced. On screen, Admiral Kim's face appeared, her expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How dare you interfere? These refugees harbor terrorists and they harbor children." Park interrupted, his voice cold. "Our scans show over 40,000 civilians in that fleet. Your attacks targeted life support systems on unarmed ships. This stops now. You don't understand our situation." "No, Admiral, you don't understand yours." Park gestured to Ha-Won, who transmitted tactical data to the Coalition fleet. "What you've seen is approximately 5% of the Thunder's combat capability. We've chosen to disable rather than destroy your ships. Don't make us reconsider that choice." The bridge fell silent as the Admiral studied the data. The scans showed clearly how easily the Thunder could have destroyed their ships rather than simply disarming them. "The refugee fleet will be granted safe passage to the outer colonies," Park continued. "The Thunder will escort them personally. Any vessel that interferes will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Do I make myself clear?" As the commander left, Su Bin and Da-Hyun returned to their analysis. The Thunder's intervention had shown them something they'd forgotten after centuries of war, that true power lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. Around them, The Coalition Analysis Center buzzed with new energy as representatives from various factions worked to understand and adapt to humanity's approach. The arrival of the Thunder hadn't just interrupted their war. It had shown them a different way to wage peace. General Sun Wuchoi's fleet materialized from hyperspace without warning. The Thunder's sensors blazed with alerts as hundreds of Coalition warships surrounded them in a carefully planned ambush. 3 full battle fleets detected. Lieutenant Ha1's voice cut through the chaos. They're using some kind of new cloaking technology. We didn't see them coming. Captain Park gripped his command chair as the first volley struck their shields. The Thunder shuddered under the impact of weapons specifically designed to counter their defenses. Engineering status, Park called out. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Do-hyun Kim's hands flew across multiple control panels, shields at 60% and dropping. They've adapted their weapons to our frequency modulation. I need time to compensate. The Thunder rolled to avoid another barrage, but there was nowhere to run. General Choi had positioned his forces perfectly, using the lessons learned from their previous encounters to trap the human vessel. This is General Choi. A transmission cut through their communications. Your interference in Coalition affairs ends today. Surrender, and we may spare your crew. Park watched as his tactical display showed more enemy ships moving into position. Do-hyun, I need options. Captain. Do-hyun's voice was strained but focused. Their new weapons are based on our shield technology. They studied our defensive patterns. But what if we could turn that against them? Explain quickly. Their weapons are synchronized to our shield frequency. If we can reverse the polarity and channel it through the quantum drive's auxiliary systems. Another hit rocked the ship. Whatever you're planning, do it fast, Park ordered. Do-hyun's fingers danced across his console, rerouting power through systems in ways their designers had never intended. The Thunder's quantum drive began to pulse with an odd rhythm, its energy signature fluctuating wildly. Shields at 40%, Ha1 reported. We can't take much more of this. Now, Do-hyun shouted, activating his modified systems. The Thunder's shields pulsed with brilliant energy. The Coalition's specialized weapons, designed to penetrate their defenses, instead created a feedback loop. Energy cascaded back through their targeting systems, overloading them but not destroying them completely. It's working, Do-hyun called out. Their weapons are being disrupted by their own energy signatures. Park saw his opportunity. All power to engines, break through their formation. The Thunder surged forward, its quantum drive screaming as it pushed beyond normal limits. Coalition ships scattered, their carefully planned trap disrupted by the unexpected counterattack. General, Park transmitted, your weapons have been disabled, not destroyed. Stand down before this escalates further. Never. Choi's response crackled with rage. All ships, ram them if you have to. The humans must not. His transmission cut off as the Thunder executed a maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship its size. Do-hyun's modifications had given them unprecedented control, allowing them to slip through gaps in the Coalition formation that barely existed. Secondary systems overloading, Do-hyun warned. We can't maintain this forever. Park made his decision. Target their propulsion systems. Minimal power, precision strikes only. Show them we could destroy them, but choose not to. The Thunder's weapons struck with surgical precision, leaving Coalition ships dead in space, but with life support intact. General Choi's trap had failed, and more importantly, had failed without a single death on either side. Enemy fleet is standing down, Ha1 reported, relief evident in her voice. General Choi's flagship is requesting medical assistance for minor injuries. Granted, Park ordered, and get me a channel to Coalition Command. They need to understand that this escalation changes nothing. We're still here to help, not conquer. As repair crews from both sides began their work, Park reflected on the battle. The Thunder had faced destruction and emerged victorious not through superior firepower, but through innovation and restraint. It was a lesson he hoped the coalition would finally understand. In engineering, Du Hyun slumped against his console, exhausted but proud. They had survived not by destroying their enemies, but by finding a way to save everyone. It was, he thought, a very human solution to an alien problem. The grand meeting hall aboard the Thunder buzzed with tension as representatives from all 12 coalition species gathered for the peace talks. Diplomatic Officer Hye-Jun Lee stood at the center of the room, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the nervous energy surrounding him. "We will begin with the fundamental needs of each species," Hye-Jun announced, activating a holographic display. Not demands, not historical claims, just basic survival requirements. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Captain Park watched from his position at the head of the table as Lieutenant Jae-Yun Shin, their cultural specialist, carefully observed each species' reactions. The crystalline collective requires specific radiation levels. Jae-Yun whispered to Hye-Jun. "Notice how their outer layers flicker when you mention resources. It's a sign of anxiety in their culture." Hye-Jun nodded subtly. "Let's start with the crystalline collective," he said. "Please share your minimum requirements for survival, not what you want, but what you need to prevent extinction." The crystalline delegate chimed in harmonic tones. "Our worlds freeze without helium-3. 3 million of our kind have already shattered in the outer colonies. Yet you control the largest helium-3 deposits," another delegate countered. "While our children—" "Stop." Hye-Jun's voice cut through the rising tension. "This is exactly how Earth's resource wars began. We're not here to argue about the past. We're here to prevent extinction. For all of you." He brought up Earth's historical archives, showing the aftermath of their own resource conflicts. Humanity learned these lessons through centuries of warfare. We found that survival depends not on hoarding resources, but on sharing technology to use them more efficiently. Captain Park stepped forward. "The Thunder's quantum drive technology can be adapted to reduce helium-3 consumption by 60%. We're willing to share this knowledge with everyone." The room erupted in overlapping arguments. Jae-Yun touched Hye-Jun's arm, pointing out subtle body language changes among the delegates. "They're afraid," she whispered, "not of sharing, but of being the first to agree." Hye-Jun understood. "Earth will oversee the technology transfer," he announced. "Each species will receive the same capability simultaneously. No one gains an advantage over the others." The crystalline delegate's surfaces rippled. "And what does Earth want in return?" "Peace," Park replied simply. "Our galaxy is vast, with resources beyond imagination. But we'll never reach them if we're locked in endless wars over what little we can see from here." Jae-Yun noticed several delegates exchanging glances. "They're considering it," she murmured. But the gas giants are still hesitant. Their body vapor is condensing, a sign of deep concern. Hye-Jun turned to the gaseous beings. "Your species requires different resources entirely. What if we could show you how to synthesize them?" Earth's molecular reconstruction technology cooled. "Impossible," the gas giant representative interrupted. "Such technology would violate the laws of physics." Park smiled. "Like our quantum drive did, like our shields do. We're offering you possibilities you haven't considered, solutions you haven't imagined." Hour by hour, species by species, Hye-Jun and Jae-Yun helped bridge the gaps. Earth's history provided examples of conflicts resolved, of enemies becoming allies, of technology transforming scarcity into abundance. Finally, after what seemed like endless negotiations, the first agreement was reached. The crystalline collective would share their helium-3 in exchange for Earth's drive technology. Others followed quickly, each species finding their place in a new order based on cooperation rather than competition. As the delegates filed out, many still processing the radical changes ahead, Hye-Jun turned to Captain Park. "Sir, do you think it will hold?" Park watched the aliens departing, former enemies now talking cautiously about joint projects and shared resources. "Peace is always harder than war, Hye-Jun. but we've given them something they've never had before. Hope that survival doesn't have to mean someone else's extinction. In the corner, Jai Yun was already updating their cultural database with new observations. The peace they'd brokered was fragile, but it was built on something stronger than treaties or technology. It was built on understanding, the very thing that had brought humanity to the stars in the first place. Engineer Min Ji-Kwan stood before the newly constructed Coalition Assembly Chamber, marveling at how far they'd come in just 6 months. The massive structure combined architectural elements from all 12 species, its design a testament to their new unity. Inside, Captain Park addressed the gathered representatives. The Thunder's extended mission had transformed into something none of them had expected: the birth of a new galactic alliance. The Coalition Peace Council is now officially in session, Park announced. Today we implement the final phase of our shared technology initiative. Min-Ji stepped forward, activating the holographic display. The fusion of human quantum drive technology with Coalition energy systems has exceeded our expectations, she explained. Resource efficiency has increased by 80% across all member worlds. The chamber hummed with approving tones from the crystalline delegates. Even the gas giant representatives, once their staunchest opponents, swirled their vaporous forms in patterns of agreement. But technology alone isn't enough, Park continued. The council system we've established, based on Earth's United Nations, ensures every species has a voice. Resources are now shared, not hoarded. Disputes are settled through mediation, not warfare. Min-Ji watched as her latest project appeared on the display. A network of automated resource distribution centers that combined human eye with alien manufacturing techniques. The system would ensure fair allocation of critical materials across all worlds. The Thunder's presence here was accidental, Park said, but what we've built together was no accident. Each of you chose to move beyond centuries of conflict. Each of you risked trust when experience told you to doubt. The assembly chamber's architecture itself reflected this trust. Crystalline beings shared space with gaseous forms, while environmental barriers that once divided species have been replaced with adaptive fields that allowed all to communicate freely. Min-Ji's engineering team had worked countless hours with alien scientists, combining their technologies in ways neither side had imagined possible. The results were everywhere, in the ships that now carried supplies instead of weapons, in the colonies that welcomed refugees instead of turning them away. Earth extends formal recognition to the new coalition, Park announced. Not as a peacekeeping force, but as partners in exploration. The Thunder's mission here is complete, but humanity's commitment to our alliance remains absolute. The chamber erupted in the varied sounds of 12 species celebrating. Min-Ji smiled, remembering the tension of their first encounters. Now, former enemies worked side by side in research labs across Coalition space, their combined knowledge accelerating technological progress beyond anything they could have achieved alone. As the assembly concluded, Min-Ji joined Park on the observation deck. Below them, ships from all species moved peacefully through space, their designs now incorporating elements of both human and Coalition technology. "Did you ever imagine this when we first arrived?" she asked. Park shook his head. "We came looking for new worlds. Instead, we found something far more valuable. The chance to show that different species can do more than just survive together. They can thrive." The Thunder's silhouette cast a shadow across the assembly chamber, no longer a symbol of superior firepower, but of the understanding that had brought peace to this corner of the galaxy. As Min-Ji watched the ships below, she knew that their greatest victory hadn't come from the weapons they could have used, but from the wisdom to find a better way. The end.